Hello class, welcome to week 2. I hope the week 1 content was understandable enough, but in case if there is anything that I was not able to explain properly, or if there is anything that's not clear to you, please feel free to send me email, or it's even better if you post it to the discussion forum. That way I believe that many other students will also be able to benefit from the Q&A session in the discussion forum. So before we move on to the course, the week 2 content, I just wanted to be sure that I say this thing out before I forget and before it slips out of my mind. So as we move forward with the course, but at any point in time, if you have questions relating to the content that is related to previous weeks, do not hesitate to send me questions, because my best interest in teaching this course is to be sure that I am able to explain the content properly, and that you understand, and at the same time it's very important for me to be sure that you understand what I teach and the course content. So at any point in time, if you have questions, do not hesitate to reach me out. So yeah, so I just wanted to say this thing out before I forget. So with that, let's move on to the week 2 content. So this week we are just going to play around the database, like for instance, we will try creating a database and try writing certain queries. In case you have taken 733 course, this might sound a bit familiar, but I'm just trying to, but this time we might just be doing a more of a hands-on exercise with writing queries and, sort of trying to build a database from the scratch. So to make it more convenient, I have prepared a cheat sheet which has all the database queries. And so I'll go ahead and start writing the database queries. But as you can see, I already have the MySQL workbench installed in my machine, and I already have the server started. So the way to check the server status, or to make sure whether your server is running or not, you can check your server status by going over here, server status. And if it's running, if your MySQL server is running, you will see a green button here. But sometimes what happens is that it might just say your system might require that you have to manually start your MySQL server. And if your SQL server is not starting, although you have already started your MySQL workbench and it's showing that your server status is not running, so what you can do is you can go over. So I have Windows 10 installed on my machine. So what you can do is you click on Run, and you do services.msc, which will provide you the list of services, and you will click on the OK button. And what you will be doing is you go all the way down until you see MySQL server. So you see over here. So mine says running. If yours says stopped, then what you can do is in case your server is not running, then you should see a run button. So in my case, I have stop. So I'll stop the server. So it's going to take some time. So, and then I'll start MySQL server. Alright, so I have MySQL server running. Let me minimize this button and I'll go over here. So the cheat sheet that I have prepared for this exercise is right here. I'll also provide it to the class. So the first thing we'll be doing is try to create a database. So a good practice, I'm not sure how many of you have programming background, but always a good practice for a programmer is to make sure that you write comments. So I'll write a comment, create a database. So one of the benefits of writing comments whenever you're writing any kind of code or queries is that, like, it will help you understand what you are doing. Let's say, you write certain set of queries and then you come back a month later, there might be a chance that you may not really understand what your code is doing. In that case, writing comments is very, very helpful. So the first thing that we have to do before we create a database for our system is creating a database. So the query to create a database is create database Vandelay. So I'll just copy paste this query from here just to save time. So I will go to MySQL and copy paste the code, and the SQL query always ends with semicolon. I don't know why this is showing the cross button over here, but this code should run. I will hit F5. Oh, sorry. I can't believe this happened. Okay, I might just have to restart my SQL server. I'm sorry, class, just bear with me. My machine, sometimes the machine acts so weird. So it just gives me, I'm so sorry I had to do this, but please bear with me. So the server is running, so this code should not run. So anytime you see a red or a cross sign, know that something is wrong with the code, or or your MySQL server has gone away, just like it happened in my case a few minutes back. So what I'll do is I'll run this code, and there are two ways to run this query. So one, you can hit this button, which is like a thunder, which has like thunder kind of sign over here. Either I can press this button, or I can press the F5 button. So yes, this query is run. So this query ran successfully, and every time your query runs successfully, you should see some kind of response from the MySQL server. So to make sure whether your database has been created or not, you can refresh this button over here in the schema section, and because this query was successful, we should see a database named Vandelay. So the next thing we're going to do is try and using this database, and to get this database in use, there is a command called use database Vandelay. So but then before I write over that, I'll just write down a comment, which is a good program practice. So use the created database, and the way to use a database is that we type in use Vandelay. So this is use command is a command that that lets the system or the MySQL server know that amongst a list of these main databases, the database that you are going to use is Vandelay. So I will highlight this and create and hit the execute button. Now, because this command was successful as well, so we now know that any query that we write now going forward, it's all going to be executed in this database. So the first thing, after we have ensured that the database that is going to be used is the database that we've just created, the next thing would be to create additional tables, because right now this database called Vandelay has no tables. So we now go ahead and add additional tables. add tables to the database. I'm just going to copy paste the queries, but it's always but if this is your first time playing with a database, I would highly recommend I would highly recommend typing the code by hand. The only reason I'm doing this is to save time. But if I were the first time user of a database or my first time experience with a database, I would manually type all the commands to just to have a hands-on experience, to have a more detailed hands-on experience, to be more specific. So what I did was I just copy pasted this code, and I will write over here. So what this command does is, the first thing, anytime we are going to create a table, we type the command to create a table is create table. So at this point, let me just pitch in something. So from my experience as a software developer for so many years, what I have realized is that MySQL commands are very, very user-friendly. If you can relate it to your personal life, the way you do daily activities, I think that's a very, very good way to make yourself familiar with the database queries. For instance, this command right here to create customers, I personally feel that the create table command is very, very user-friendly, because let's say you want to create something new or add something new, the command is just create, which is what we do even in our regular life. If you want to create something or add something, the generic term is create. So yeah, so the command to create any table is create table, and customers is a table name. This could be anything. Let's say you want to create a table called books. In that case, the customers, this name is going to be replaced by books. And customer ID over here is the column name over here. So going back to our week 1 content, I have told you that every database can contain one or more table, and every table can contain one or more fields or attributes or columns. So over here, after you type in the table name, which could be anything, you type in the field name for those tables, which are column names. So customer ID is the primary key, so this is going to be auto increment, and this field cannot be null, so we type in not null. And this is going to be an unsigned field, so we type in unsigned. And this over here is a data type, so this can be just the integer, and this can be signed or unsigned. So this can be a little confusing to you if we are seeing this for the first time. This might not really be necessary. You can just get rid of it. And the reason I'm saying that you can ignore this field over here is because the primary key is always unsigned. So at this moment, allow me to explain the difference between unsigned and signed binary integer. So the very basic difference between unsigned and signed variable is that whenever you say that a field is unsigned, it means that it is always positive numbers, and they do not require any kind of arithmetic sign like plus, minus. But if you say that it is signed, then it means that it can take in negative values as well as positive values. But we know that the customer ID is never going to be negative value in a database, so we just say it unsigned. And by default, the primary key is always unsigned. So this field is not very necessary, but I just wanted to be sure that I explain the difference between unsigned and signed. So yeah. So in this customer tables, the primary key for the table is customer ID, and then we also add in another common